So, what is virtual production? What I will show you today will not only answer questions on where and how to start virtual production, but will also save you countless hours of research and hunting down obscure and often confusing information. Remember that this field is changing rapidly, and new tools are being introduced and announced daily. So I will introduce you to the most up-to-date and evergreen structural information on virtual production, meaning what you need to get started. So what is virtual production? It is where the physical and digital worlds meet. The first virtual production started really on Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, but the real turning point in the industry was with James Cameron's Avatar.
What are you saying, Jake? You knew this would happen?
Because of the nature of this film, with this alien clan, this alien culture, we had a choice. We could do it with makeup, like it's always been done, rubber appliance makeup. It would have looked horrible and it would have been boring and stupid and, kind of blue actors running around in the rainforest in their underwear, and a bunch of blue body paint. It would have looked terrible. And I wasn't interested in that. If I was going to do this, I wanted to do it this way, which is with performance capture.
But before he could do that, Cameron first had to make sure his technology could cross what's known in robotics and animation as the uncanny valley.
Let's say this is an absolute human, and this is a, kind of a talking moose. As you approach human, our attraction to the character goes down. And then at the last second, just when you get to a true human look, it goes back up. Well, we needed to get on the far side of that dip in the response curve, which is called the uncanny valley. And we needed to get to the opposite side where we believed, we don't have to necessarily believe that it's 100% photoreal, and we don't have to necessarily believe that they actually exist, but we have to believe in them as emotional creatures. And so we came up with the head rig. We call it the head rig. It's basically just a kind of helmet, very tight conformal kind of skull cap that's based on a life cast of the actor's head and a laser scan. So it fits very tightly and smoothly and comfortably. And then, there's a carbon fiber boom that comes out with a little camera on the front of it. And that camera shoots the face in a nulled out close-up. So even though the actor's moving all around, running, jumping, yelling, screaming, jumping off stuff, jumping over logs, running flat out, whatever, we're getting that facial performance absolutely locked off.
And from that, they were able to record every facial movement, from the actor's lips to their eyes.
And that proved to exactly be the kind of holy grail approach to how to do CG faces, not the stuff that they had done before, which is what we call marker-based. We're now image-based. We got the best animators in the world to take all this data that was coming out of our performance captures, and then we limited their options to things that were value added, like the ears and the tails. So they took a human performance with no diminishment whatsoever and then added to it. So when people ask me, sort of what percentage of the actor's performance came through in the final character, I say 110%, because you actually had an increase in the sense of whatever the emotionality of the moment was.
So virtual production lets directors work on a real stage, but view a virtual set and characters either on LED screens or monitors like you see here, that James Cameron's looking at the composited image. Virtual production was used in the Fellowship of the Ring, but it was James Cameron's 2009 Avatar that was a turning point for the industry. So this combination of 3D sets and CG characters animated by motion capture is then fed into a real camera and monitor, allowing James Cameron to direct the action as if he were actually in Pandora. So fast forward about 10 years later, 2020, and Katy Perry and augmented reality. This is, I don't know if some of you saw this in May of this year, the final episode of American Idol. Katy Perry did a virtual production performance. And so she is on a stage that is made of completely of LEDs, and she's performing a music video. The only real things on this stage are Katy Perry and that yellow chair. So what is augmented reality? It is a technology that superimposes a CG image on a user's view of the real world, thus providing a composited view. So an augmented reality camera, or a camera that's capable of that, is a camera that is a 3D camera. So if you have an iPhone X or one of the newer Pixel phones, you have a 3D capable camera on it that is able to scan the real world for depth and objects, and then feed that data back to the camera to process it in seconds or milliseconds.
Try to knock me down, took those sticks and stones, showed them I could build a house. They tell me that I'm crazy, but I'll never let them change me. So they cover me in daisies, daisies, daisies. They said I'm going nowhere, try to cut me out. Took those sticks and stones, showed them I could build a house. They tell me that I'm crazy, but I'll never let them.
With the growth of augmented reality, the advancement of 3D processing on cameras, as well as GPUs in computers, allows us to bring sort of James Cameron's Pandora to TV sets and broadcasting all over the world.
With what we did for the Katy Perry American Idol finale, we recorded here on the stage behind me a 3-minute clip in where Katy Perry is in a virtual world, a cartoony style world. And when the people from XR Studios came to us, JT Rooney and Baz, they quickly realized that PRG was and is one of the few companies around that can do this on this scale. We have access to a huge inventory when it comes down to gear, inventory that when it comes to the LED behind me in all of the possible pixel pitches, but also access to a massive inventory when it comes down to cameras, media servers, and any of the control gear involved. So it was an easy conversation with them when they had their client being Katy Perry reaching out to them for everything content-wise, and we were there to support them on the gear side. So that was a very nice collaboration, and it led to a beautiful result. Going back again a little bit history-wise, there is a lot of confusion happening lately about what exactly extended reality is. And to go back to my earlier point, extended reality being the umbrella term for all sorts of added reality, where augmented reality is really to describe the addition of 3D generated content, composited over a live background view, providing the appearance of content sitting in or augmenting the real world. So that's augmented reality. Virtual reality is where you need to use an added fixture or gear, whether it's the goggles or your phone, is where we're using computer technology to create a simulated environment and places the user inside that experience. So instead of viewing a screen in front of them, users are immersed and able to simulate and preview the production environment from within a VR headset, for example. So then we go to mixed reality, and mixed reality really goes beyond composited augmented reality, placing real-time rendered content on screens, around and under the actors, just like the setup we have behind me. Also real objects, props on stage. In the Katy Perry shoot, for example, the yellow chair was a real chair, it's a real prop. So you're creating very rich virtual environments that really immerse the talent in the space, but also makes it very easy for the talent on stage to reference certain points or certain sequences in the animation or in the video, so they have a reference in space where they are within that video without having to look on a screen showing the finished result. So XR, where does XR comes in then, which is really an emerging umbrella term for all of the immersive technologies. the ones I mentioned before, AR, VR, MR, and also the ones that still have to be created, because it's an ongoing, continuous evolution and R&D involved into that.
Virtual production isn't just about technology, it is actually about storytelling, because virtual production allows the story to expand larger on a smaller budget. It is reported that virtual production allows Disney Plus to cut about 30% on some of their productions. So this tells us the Mandalorian could never be made in the real world. It would just be too expensive to produce. And so this is part of what the paradigm shift is. So as you hear more about virtual production, realize that every studio and network in the United States and Europe is quickly ramping up onto virtual production. I mean, just absolutely. So you are going to see thousands of virtual production stages, small and large, by the end of the year. And COVID just simply accelerated it, actually. That's really what it did. So part of why we have this paradigm shift is for the first time, we have reached a budget tipping point. It used to be the case that the time and cost of creating photorealistic digital sets would outweigh the cost of doing it for real or sending a small crew to some country to film. But thanks to game engines like Unreal and Unity, real-time GPU rendering, and real human motion capture, the process and time involved in making these digital worlds has never been quicker. So what you're looking at here is a digital world rendered in game engine, and it is very pixel accurate. I mean, it looks like the real world. This is part of the paradigm shift. Now that you can get these kind of digital assets and digital environments and sets that look like the real world, you're going to see this more and more. A set like this can be created in a matter of a couple of days, if not sooner. The next thing you're seeing, well, so for example, a high-end apartment can be created to the art director's specification in less time than it takes to location scout and find it. So directors and creatives and clients can put on a VR headset and walk around these digital sets, planning shots, blocking action, and moving walls to the director's design or what best fits the production. This requires learning some game engine tools, but the technology is empowering artists, removing many of the technical and logistical barriers that used to exist, allowing for quicker iterations on a set. So if a director says, well, I want that chair over here, I want to set the table, this can be done in a matter of seconds on a computer. And so it's so here in this instance, we're going to change the floor. So if we were in the real world, this would not be an easy thing to do. But in the digital world, in virtual production, these sets can be changed on the fly. Another part of the paradigm shift is that COVID-19 is helping us accelerate this move to virtual production.
OD, 06, and action.
So while restrictions on filming and travel have impacted traditional filmmaking, virtual production can be used to overcome some of those restrictions. Virtual production allows film producers to create an entire digital 3D set to replicate traditional live locations. It allows the producers to send a one-man crew to anywhere in the world to shoot just a background plate. And so what you're going to see here is a remote multi-user session. And so you see we have the mocap artist, the director, and so you can see an entire production being put together with all the above-the-line folks and crew in different locations. And in fact, the mocap actor is in his home in a mocap suit performing the the actions. So, and the director directing the whole thing in his living room. So actors can be digitally inserted into these environments, augmenting scenes by using thousands of digital extras, and filming actors separately, adhering to minimum distance, and then bringing them back together in the same scene. So this is all part of the paradigm shift in terms of virtual production. And so here you're looking at the finished product of what was done remotely with people all over the world in different locations. Now, what are the three types of virtual production? So we're going to run through those next, what they are, and how much they cost to get set up. So the first one, and remember, all three of these are virtual production. Sometimes there's a sort of confusion that virtual production is only the green screen or only the LED screens like you see in the Mandalorian. There are three different types. Now, there are many nuances to that, but there are three overall types. And the first is all CG engine. So it's all done on just a computer with some mocap data.
Today, we celebrate the anniversary of the platform unification directives.
So this video was actually just released 2 days ago, and some of you may have seen it. Unreal, or Epic Games, that creates Fortnite and is also the creator of the Unreal Engine that fuels most of this, is in a battle with Apple over the Apple Store and their game. This whole thing was done in Game Engine. And so this is all CG in Game Engine with some motion capture. Now, what does it take to do that? All in engine is created in a computer. This is basically an animation workflow. It is 3D animation with some real world input, like a handheld camera, motion capture, or real actors moving in special made mocap suits and data. This is the lowest end, and what this just really requires is preferably a PC. The virtual production really is the realm of the PC. You can get started with the Mac and do some of the stuff in like an all engine CG project in a Mac. But when we get to the other stuff like the green screen or the LED volumes, it really does have to be a PC. So if you are thinking about buying your next computer, you are really interested in doing virtual production, you should be looking at a PC, either a gaming laptop or a PC tower with a dedicated graphics card. But to get started to see if this is something you're really interested in, you can start with a Mac if you have it. So a good PC with a good graphics card, like an NVIDIA 1070 or newer, and an iPad or an iPhone. And then the software is free. Unreal offers the software, so you can actually download the Unreal Game Engine and their remote live link that allows you to do face animation or face capture. Unity Game Engine, which is their competitor, also has some of the same things as well. So you can get started relatively cheaply if you already have a computer. If you're thinking about buying a computer, then I would suggest you go directly to getting a PC, a gaming laptop. Next up, so you see here, this is what is the set, the green screen set. This is composited in Unreal Engine. So all of these sets are 3D digital sets. And so it's just compositing, mixed reality compositing with a green screen. So you see it's really convincing. But again, we're compositing the 3D world into a green screen world. And so what is the cost of that? So the cost goes up a little bit more because then we're looking at cameras that can output time code and sync through Genlock. So mixed reality with a green screen is basically a film production, whereas the first one, all CG in engine, is basically a computer animation with mocap and camera. Well, while there are VFX and real-time 3D animation, this is essentially a film set. So here, when you move the camera in the CG world, it reacts accordingly, as you saw as she moved through this environment. The background is moving in accordance with it. So this helps the camera operator better understand what he or she is shooting and how the lighting affects the subject and mood of the shot. This composite shot is viewable for the director and anyone else in the video village. The CG gaffer can light backgrounds in the game engine, and the camera operator can light the real world subjects in real life to match that lighting and actually see what the outcome is. That live composition process is more fluid and immediate than traditional post-production VFX pipeline, where you composite it later, then fix it in post. Traditionally, when a camera operator shoots green screen, they are shooting blind because they cannot see what will be composited later. With virtual production, they can move the camera freely and design better shots because they are looking at a real-time composite image and an on-camera monitor right there on the set. So there's not a lot of hardware, but you can start this with a DSLR camera and an HDMI connection, but to do professional level work that you're going to do for a client, you're going to have a camera with an SDI out and that is capable of generating time code and gen lock so that the images are synced perfectly. The cameras that can do that are the Blackmagic Pro G2 and an ARRI Mini LF, a red camera, and there are many broadcast cameras can do that, like an Ikigami, but you have to check to make sure that the one you've got, if you've got a broadcast camera, that it is capable of not just time code, but gen lock, and that's the key, because gen lock syncs everything up. Next, what we have is the big one. This again is mixed reality, where you're mixing real people in a world with LED sets.
Part of what's been fun about collaborating on The Mandalorian with Lucasfilm and Disney is that we have been able to see through a few technical innovations and a few firsts that I think are going to have a lot of impact on the way television and movies are made moving forward. In partnership with ILM and Epic, we have put together a system whereby which we can have game engine, real-time render, and video wall technology coming together to create a backdrop for the big, beautiful world of Star Wars.
The volume is 21 feet tall, it's 75 feet in diameter, run by 7 machines, pumping the visuals onto the screen that's been created in pre-production and can be on the screen within 24 hours of being finalized.
It's incredibly impressive when you first walk out there because it completely surrounds your peripheral vision. And you really quickly forget that you're indoors and you're not out on some planet's surface. It feels like a real three-dimensional environment surrounding you because it is a three-dimensional environment.
You can allow your key creatives to all make decisions together so that the shots are captured entirely in camera, which allows for a better performance.
And what was so exciting about this is by bringing those people together, things started to click, and we started to realize, well, let's not just do green screen and interactive light. If we're going to design the whole set and game engine ahead of time, maybe we could have some in-camera effects.
Everything in the volume is designed to both light the actors and to be a background that we can directly photograph. So you end up with real-time final pixels in camera.
If you look at visual effects heavy films, you've got a film set and then it's going to go to post and it's going to get the world put in. Here we're considering all of that at the same time, and how do we create a background and foreground that live together on the volume harmoniously.
When we started to play with the idea of using Unreal Engine for virtual production, that's one of the things that Richard and John started to embrace, is that you've got this very dynamic world where you can have randomization of things and find the happy accident that gives you the perfect shot. Being able to see the actors point at things and see what they're looking at was pretty transformative. It gave everybody context, with the added benefit that if you want to move a mountain from there to there, you can do it instantly.
you could switch between the Iceland location to the desert location, all within the same day of shooting.
The ability to shoot a 10-hour dawn is extraordinary. To shoot any sequence where you say, oh, this world's not quite right, let's just move it a little bit. An extraordinary number of benefits and advantages for shooting in that environment. It's mind-blowing what that tool is.
What you see is really what you get. And that's something that really means a lot to filmmakers, especially those who have worked with a more traditional approach in the past.
Shots of character in a vehicle traveling through a complex environment. It's always very difficult to do believably on stage. LED screens are a wonderful solution to that problem, because what you're doing is you're taking this technique of image-based lighting that we've been using in computer graphics for years, and use it to light a subject.
And then we would do shoots where we would texture map real lit surfaces onto our game engine Geo, and so the camera could move anywhere. We would do interiors, like Werner Herzog's office. And then you started doing things like building sets into it, having half a spaceship with reflective surfaces. And so it became exciting because by the end of the season, it was like, let's start designing sets around what this could do well.
Just like the good old days.
With Star Wars, we're building on a rich legacy of innovation, and getting to partner with Jon Favreau to make his ambitious vision a reality, it's really a game changer for filmmaking.
This set actually cost ILM, well, it's called a volume, an LED volume, and it cost approximately $100 million to build. Now, that includes all of their R&D and development costs years prior to that. So that's not really what these things cost. And also theirs is huge. It is absolutely humongous. So this is the one that kind of changed everything, because it's the first time we're actually seeing this on a TV show. So how much does something like this cost? Mixed reality with an LED screen or LED volume on a film set. This is film production. While there are VFX and real-time 3D animation, this is a film set with live action, real actors, LED walls that allow us to put any environment we want on them, and then real props and costumes. Here you're seeing a green screen that's digitally put in. This is not a physical green screen. On the LED wall, they're able to put this green screens right behind the actors, because this is what the final image looks like. And actually, the director is looking at this final image on the set in real time. So they're giving this sort of an infinity perspective that they want in that one spot. So how much does this cost? Anywhere from $100,000 on up to $1 million or plus. You are again looking at gen-locked cameras, and then high-end LED screens plus their riggings. And these screens can run $100,000 a screen. And then camera tracking systems. And then the computers here are something called God boxes, because these computers could run about $20,000 on up. So there's the HP Z8. They have high-end graphics cards, typically the NVIDIA Quadro and RTX cards that allow for real-time tracing. And then capture cards like the Blackmagic Decklink and the AJA. Again, you're still doing the same software that we were looking at before, but here we're adding in-display, Unreal's free in-display, which powers and integrates the LED screens into the computers and the cameras, so that we can see, the directors can see what they're doing. So a little bit about, because I've mentioned motion capture a couple of times here, and so I want to give a little bit of a breakdown about the motion capture. So a motion capture can be pretty cheap or more expensive, and they're motion capture suits that are capturing the data from the movement of the actor in real time and then sending that directly to the computer so that information can be processed. And so in this case, they are actually capturing the actor's performance, their face capture, their voice, their hands, and their body all at the same time, which is proving to be the most successful way to do this. You can actually do the face capture with Unreal's remote live link, and that is the free app on the App Store. You could actually do that now with the free game engine, and you could actually do it with your own face. So let's give you an example of some of that here. So face capture electronically converts the movements of a person's face into a digital database using cameras or laser scanners. This database then is used to produce CG computer animations for movies, games, or real-time avatars.
Hey, what is up? My name is Matt Workman, and today I'm back testing the LiveLink Face app for Unreal Engine. And I'm working with two new models today. These are both from the marketplace that I can link to in the description below for the YouTube viewers of this little clip here. And these work basically out of the box with ARKit. So if you don't want to use Kiteboy for your project and you want to use two base humans, these are pretty good starts. I am talking with a developer a little bit lately to be using this in Cinetracer and just some kind of future stuff that he has planned for it. Right now, everything works except for the eyes. The eye rotations aren't quite lining up right now. I'm not sure what that is. It could be on my end, but everything else is there. And these are great base models that might be coming again to Cinetracer. Who knows? So let's do a couple range of motion tests right now for the mouth. So we're going to say A-O-U. A-E-I-O-U. Hello, my name is Matt. Okay, so I can see a couple issues, but again, these can be tuned if you watched my last video on how to tune morph targets, and I could probably work with the developer a little bit and write some stuff on my end to make these work just a little bit better from this first initial test. But overall, most of the work has been done, and they come with different hairstyles, and you can change the skin shaders, and just happy that it's working with LiveLink Face pretty much out of the box.
Some virtual production tools that you will want to think about. A camera that outputs, depending on where you go, if you're just going to do the in camera, all CG, you don't need a camera that outputs Genlock or time code. But if you want to do the green screen or the LED volume, you can start with a DSLR with an HDMI connection, but the images are going to drift and you're not going to have professional level control. But if you want to test it out, you can absolutely do it that way. You will need a PC tower or gaming laptop. You can get started on Mac OS, but it has to be a Mac that has a dedicated graphics card, an AMD GPU. Some of the software that, if you know these or if you want to start dabbling, some of the software outside of the game engines is Maya, Houdini, Blender, iClone. So where is the future? We're already seeing this now, virtual concerts. And this is one of the very first virtual concerts that was done. And again, this is through Fortnite, which is owned by Epic Games, which also does Unreal. I do not work for them. It's just they are the leader of the pack. That is what the Mandalorian uses. It is what Westworld uses. It's what Game of Thrones uses. So they are the leader of the pack.
Yo, what is up, Fortnite? What's up, Pleasant Park? My name is Marshmallow, and thank you for coming out today and making history with me. You guys ready?
So what you're looking at here is a virtual concert with the rap DJ artist named Marshmallow. And this was done in the world's most popular game, Fortnite. So he is in a stage in in either Southern California or Northern California, wherever this was done, in a mocap suit. That's him there. And his digital avatar is performing, but he is actually literally performing live at the Unreal Studios in either Los Angeles or San Rafael in the Bay Area. And so they had millions of people log in worldwide to actually view this 11-minute concert. And so it's been so successful that Travis Scott, the rap artist, has gone on and done one, and now everyone wants to do one. So companies leading in this field are Zone VR, The Famous Group, and of course Epic Games' Fortnite. What you're also going to see in the future are more episodic television shows, movies, music videos, operas are using this, theater, live events, and of course you're seeing news and broadcast. The Weather Channel, you've seen parts of it in CNN and Fox's election coverage, and Fox Sports is using it for the fall with virtual fans in the stands. This is all virtual production. This is a paradigm shift. Rarely do you get a chance to be ahead of the curve and part of something that is literally changing and will change the world, especially our industry. And virtual production really is it. This is huge.
Check this out.
I wanted to bring to your attention that the Emmys actually awarded their 2020 Emmy Innovation Award in sports and innovation was for an augmented reality project. And this is a level that if you want to, you can start getting involved in, where you don't need a big studio. You just need to learn how to do some A&R, augmented reality.
Experience Red Bull Rampage like never before.
This was for their Rampage show. What they did was they created an augmented reality of the actual competition. And people could play it on their cell phones or right there in their living room. This was the real actual one. And then their viewers could actually place it in AR in their homes for those people who couldn't be at the event and watch a virtual production, augmented reality version of the real competition in real time. And a member of their crew told me that they actually use virtual production and that Red Bull is actually going head on into virtual production. They had millions of views and they see this as the future. And so even after COVID, so virtual production is not just a COVID, it really is something that's going to be here after COVID.
And explore exclusive content.
And so where do I start? Where do you start? There are lots of online learning opportunities. Unreal has online learning free. Unity Game Engine, which is the competitor to Unreal, and there's a lot of talk that they may be bought by Apple as they prepare for their IPO, both of them do this. Unreal is the leader. There is a young man, Matt Workman, who has a virtual production YouTube vlog that he posts videos every week about things he's doing. And also he runs the Unreal Virtual Production Facebook group and the XR Lab at Laney College. And you can contact me at this email address. Here are some other things that you can take a look at. The Unreal's Field Guide, the Wandering DP has 2 video podcasts about his efforts to shoot a virtual production and how the things he had to overcome. So it's great because he shows you where he had problems and what he had to do on an indie level to do virtual production. And there's an article here on just the 101 basics of virtual production. And that's it.
Well, thanks, Koina. I have some questions here I can ask. So a question from Shiv.
says he's a screenwriter and asked to write a virtual reality video game for autistic children, teenagers. Have only written in final draft, but I'm having a hard time finding a screenwriting software for virtual reality. Do you have any suggestions?
Okay, so he's talking about a game, and so a virtual reality game. So then, what you're really talking about is narrative, sort of the narrative design. And yes, there really are writers, and for games and immersive design. And in fact, the whole field of narrative design has become very big, very, very big, because game companies are now understanding they really have to have real writers and not just programmers and people and designers. They have to have writers to tell these stories. But Artisy is a one that allows you to write a story that's node-based, so that at this point, if the character picked up a telephone, this is what would happen, because this is really, you're talking about interactive storytelling. And so there are several of these things, some that are free, some that cost money. Artisy has a free version that's actually the pro version that they let you use for a year. Artisy is often talked about because it can actually be brought into the game engine, whether it's Unity or Unreal. And you, as the writer, when you say, okay, when the person picks up the phone, the voice on the other side says, "Hi, can I talk to your mother?" And then the actor has two options. They can hang up or they can respond such and such way. When you're done, that can be brought into any of the game engines. And then the programmers and the designers know very clearly what you want to have happen. And so those are very, very popular. I know that Final Draft, that I know the latest version has some form of node-based interface. And so because in reality, Final Draft doesn't want to get left by the wayside. And since Final Draft is the industry standard for us, for screenwriters and television, they are implementing this sort of node-based. But the one that sort of is at the top of the charts is Artisy.
And Pilar asks, and you know, this our members, many of our members work in news, and so this question is definitely very appropriate to us. How do you envision the use of this technology in hard news besides what we've already seen? You know, we've seen this used in weathercasting, but do you envision it being used in hard news in other ways?
Right. Actually, there is some talk about using it in hard news. You know, again, because so you would have your trucks that go out would be able to composite in real time, sort of like data. So if you're out there in the field and you're reporting on a wildfire in a canyon, and this is real-time stuff, you know, then you can actually do the compositing of the map of where you are and where the firefighters are. They can actually tie into some public data that the first responders are using. And so that kind of information can be brought in real time, that sort of first responder information, and represented in 3D graphics and imagery. So that's one of the ways that I'm seeing. Sorry. And of course, you're going to see more of, you know, you're going to see more of this kind of stuff you're seeing with the Weather Channel and European soccer, which is just off the charts with what they're doing. Because it's basically a couple people sitting at a desk in a room that's completely green, and it's just, you know, all of a sudden there is, you know, you're inside of a soccer match, a 3D soccer match, and the characters are playing right there for them. So you're going to see more of that kind of stuff, especially with sports, because sports just has the money for it. But that is actually going to start to seep over into hard news. And again, you'll see stuff that will interface with first responders data. That whereas you were used to before following the police calls on the radios saying, you know, something is happening here and there, as they have more data and not just people, you know, on a, you know, not just the the radio calls. You actually are getting real data that can be used and interpolated and brought into a 3D medium. You're going to see much more of that. So the world will look, even in hard news, is going to look more and more like a video game, more and more.
And then Allison asked, and I would just expand her question a little bit. She asked, so will still photographers be in higher demand? But I'm wondering, how will these jobs change? Will there be jobs you think eliminated or evolve to the new technology?
So that's a question people ask all the time. So thank you for asking that. First of all, still photographers, a lot of you made your transition to doing HDSLR, and which was really smart. There is a need for what is called photogrammetry. So when you look at like the Mandalorian set, a lot of that stuff and the props that you see in the 3D world are actually photographed with a camera that has with a 4K or 6K camera. I mean, so even a Sony A7 III, I think it just came out, Mark III just came out, which is one of the tools of choice that has very, very high fidelity. So there will just be more and more need for people to do photogrammetry, and that is, in a sense, that's also photography. You're taking those cameras, you're taking very high quality images, and then bringing them into a 3D program, and turning them into 3D objects. But the skin on them is actually the photographs that were taken. That's one thing, because photogrammetry field will blow up, and it's just the need for, because people. On one end, people want the very cute game-like kind of things like you saw with the Marshmallow concert. But on the other end, people, there's a huge demand for real-world looking assets, things that are photoreal. And so there is a need for that. And in terms of the jobs, look, this stuff is still film and TV production. It is still production. So the added layer to that is the game engine and people that know game engines. But you still have all the same needs for the cameramen, the storytellers, the writers, the reporters. So those jobs are not going away. What is being created and what the demand is, big time, are for people who know Unreal. The demand is off the charts. And in fact, I had a conversation with one of the C-suites at Epic Games. And he said to me, he says, you have no idea how many phone calls I get a day from studio and network heads asking me, begging me, do I know anyone that knows Unreal, even just on a basic level, that can take these images and bring them in on a set in real time. ILM has had looking for somebody to fill that position for almost a year. I had another C-suite executive say to me that he said, I saw a bidding war for a college student. And I said, what, a college student? This must have been some out of the world. He said, no, they just knew Unreal. They knew how to bring in the game engine. They just had a basic level and understood it. And he said, and there was literally a bidding war amongst networks to get a student. The demand is off the charts, and the supply is extremely limited, because many colleges are just starting to wake up to this, and you're seeing it at a USC and at an NYU, a little bit at UCLA. We're doing it at Laney, and we've been doing it for 2 years. But the demand for anyone that has the knowledge, and again, we're not talking high-level knowledge, we're talking a basic knowledge, can understand how to work in a game engine and put together a virtual production piece. off the charts. And I can't even tell you how off the charts it is. These jobs just go unfilled.
So, Koina, I got a few more questions here. Before it gets lost, I just want to make sure that you let people know if they want to take your class. I guess it starts in about 10 days. You still have openings in your class?
Right. So we have a certificate that is we have a Unity certificate for XR, which is so Unity is the competitor to Unreal, and their real strength is augmented reality and virtual reality apps. So they're the leader in augmented and virtual reality apps. Unreal is the leader in virtual production and straight games. So we have a certificate. Once you know how to do it in one, honestly, it's very easy to learn how to do it in the other engine. And so this certificate actually gives you a badge that goes on your LinkedIn page, your resume, and says that you're certified by Unity to create XR apps. And so we have both the virtual reality course and the augmented reality course this fall. That starts in about a week or so, and they're all completely online. And when you complete those two courses, you get the badge certificate through Unity. And like I said, Unity is expected to launch their IPO later this year, and they are, like I said, they're the number 2 in the world, or the competitor with Unreal.
And it's Media 77. Is that how they would sign up for it?
Right. Yeah. So no, that's Media 70 and Media 75. And so I will. I forgot to include the links to it, but if you go to laney.edu/XR you can get all the information on the certificate and the links to click to enroll. And that's laney.edu//XR lab.
Great. There's a good question here from Shane.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison.
There's a good question here from Shane. Is there an audition site for mocap actors? We have a green screen and a good camera here, along with a couple of actors. It'd be great to do this from home.
Oh, okay. Well, I hadn't really thought much, because what you're finding is that most actors that are going to give you the performance, I mean, unless they're just completely unable to move, you want their mocap performance because they're giving you the real performance if they can act. And so you want to capture all of their data. I hadn't thought much about, I will take a look into it. That is actually a really good question. I hadn't thought about like an audition site for it, but I will take a look into that. And if you email me, I can email you back this weekend once I've had a chance to look into it. That's a good question. It's one I hadn't thought about before. Thank you for asking.
And I had this question that, that I was thinking about while you were talking. It's all been mostly done, as I noticed, on PC. Is Mac not really equipped hardware-wise to handle all this, or are they too expensive? Why is it all PC?
Well, because Mac has just not had the processing power to handle this. And so what has happened is that it really was a misstep on Mac's part. They chased the consumer market for years, doing the thinnest, smallest, cutest computer, while PC went the enterprise route, and they started chasing the VFX studios, the game studios. So when you walk into a game studio or a VFX studio, it is basically all PCs, except for like in the art department, you'll find some Macs. But even then, because everything that's done on a Mac, you could do on a PC. Mac has got, they've got the message loud and clear, and they're coming back with beefier computers. They're high-end computers. But remember that a lot of the software developers that created software to integrate and work with game engines have spent the past decade developing for PCs, because Mac had really cut themselves out of the marketplace. And so in terms of virtual production, when you get to the green screen level, when you get to the 100% when you get to the LED volume level, it has to be a PC. And the PCs we're talking about, honestly, are PCs that are start at about $20,000 at the LED level. When you are, because it has to have enough power to push all those pixels in real world, real time, to a screen and without a delay. And so, I mean, because if you've got an actor performing and they've got to wait for, they've walked across the screen and, walked across the set, and you've got to wait for the virtual set to catch up with them, that's a problem. So the kind of computers that power LED volumes and virtual sets, the highest level of virtual production, you don't get into that game at less than $20,000, and it's often called the God Box, and or the HPZ8.
Okay, that's all the questions I had in the chat. If in the few minutes that we have left, if anybody has a question, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it. I'm not seeing anybody unmute themselves. So thank you.
Hi, Steve.
Yes.
This is Susan. I did have a question. I did post it in the chat. When you were talking about hard news, there was just something that came to mind. Just what safeguards are in place when if you use VR or augmented reality for hard news? How do you phrase it? How do you stop fake news? How do you keep from generating alternate realities?
Well, that's really a good question. This issue came up about a year ago when, and we're talking just with Photoshop, somebody in the Palestinian territories put out a video of a Israeli soldier beating and killing a Palestinian child. It was all fake. The event actually never happened, but it sparked a riot. And it was a wake-up call for a lot of people in the industry was because it took, and there was nothing the Israelis could say to say this actually didn't happen, because I saw the footage and it looked so real. I thought it was real, and I thought, this is amazing. How do we stop this? And it took several days before the sort of mini riots were put down, and people were convinced this was actually fake. This never really even happened. So there really aren't any safeguards in that respect. You hope that reputable organizations and reputable news organizations actually put out legitimate factual news, but that doesn't stop some guy in his basement at a computer that says, well, screw you, I'm gonna do what I want to do. That is really one of the questions for our industry that no one has really found a way to deal with, because what's the old saying that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets out of bed and puts its pants on. It really comes down to people in organizations and fact checking. But you're going to see more of that kind of stuff. You absolutely are, and especially with the advent of digital humans. Just earlier this spring, you have the first digital human. I think her name is Michaela, who got a record contract from a recording studio. So she's completely CG, and the studio that created her does these mixed reality music videos. And so they shoot the music video, and they put the 3D CG character in there. She's singing, performing, and she, the 3D generated digital character, just got their first recording contract. You are going to see the rise of digital humans on a level you can't even imagine. And as they get better and better, this will be an ethical question.
Oh.
Does that answer it? Susan?
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer because it is one that bothers me as well. But there's the technology can't be stopped, and you can't control somebody sitting at their computer in a basement. You really can't.
Okay. Well, thank you, Koina. This has been great. I'll get the PowerPoint from you, and I'll insert it so that the recording of this, I'll insert it into the recording so the recording will be a little bit cleaner.
Thank you.
But it's very informative. Anybody interested, sign up for her class. Sounds like you still have openings. And if there's nothing else, I really want to thank Daryl for doing all the behind-the-scenes technical stuff to get this going. And we're going to be planning some more of these Zoom for our chapter. I'm glad you all could participate.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen. Maybe next time I won't have to drive to Starbucks to get a better reception. I apologize.
You know, the technology gives it to you, and it takes it away from you too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's an evil taskmaster.